Perfect. All right. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome back to Pure Michigan Sports. It is officially playoff football time here in Detroit. Obviously, it was playoff football time before, but now it's the
But
case
today's the
here in
day.
Detroit. Yeah, today
Today's
is
the
the
day.
day.
It's
Where longtime listeners will know we'll usually record the day before and then release it. We're doing it the day of. We're in the Lions spirit here, and I think that is the perfect place to be. Christian Peck-Dimmitt, Alex Steimel, and we are bringing you, as always, the all of the new sports news in the state of Michigan tomorrow. So on Sunday, we'll have an everything else where we talk Pistons and Red Wings and Michigan basketball and all the other sports in the state that are doing pretty well, aside from a half-court buzzer beater here and there.
I
But
got
we'll get to that. But for now, for this episode, if you're looking for Lions football, you're in the right place, and we've got a preview for what is an 8.5-point difference here as far as betting goes between the Commanders and the Lions in Ford Field. We'll start with the fact that I've got a little stat for you, and you know I love these little useless ESPN stats. The last 14 teams that have gone into a playoff game as 8 or more point underdogs, 14 and 0 against, pardon me, 0 and 14 straight up.
Whoa, that's a
Made
big
that
difference there,
very
man. You
misleading for
just
a
about
second
had
there.
me. You just about had me shitting bricks. Um, that was
No, but
oh,
they've all lost. All the last
yeah, yeah,
14 of them have all lost.
which is great. And I do think. I mean, we also props to us. We both called it. Last episode, if you missed it, we said, hey, I think the Lions are gonna be facing the Commanders. I think if any team was on upset alert, it was unfortunately Baker. I love Baker, but I've never seen him perform well in big games. Uh, and then obviously, see, you'd seen double doinks, you'd seen some crazy field goal ending type, like the crazy field goal game enders, whether they've made them or missed them. I've never seen a doink in to win a game.
That was pretty wild. It really
That
was.
and Jaden Daniels also played an incredible game. I think he's an incredible talent. I think the fact that New York or all these teams passed on trying to get him or tried to
Mm.
trade up for him, I forget exactly what the draft order was, but it'll be interesting to see what goes. And I think the number one, and kind of just to get right into it, the biggest issue I think the Lions will have today is attempting to contain him because
Mm.
they let a guy like Caleb Williams, who is a bit similar, he's that dual threat quarterback who can run and throw, but better than Caleb Williams in my mind. And Caleb Williams still was, moving out of the pocket. He was making plays happen, and that's going to be a problem if we don't have the right spies on Daniels today. I think he can make you pay. Um,
I think you're starting in the right place because it feels like for all of our lives, the state of Michigan has struggled to contain dual threat quarterbacks, whether that's in college, Michigan football, or whether it's like right now in the pros, the Lions have always sort of seemed to struggle keeping contain on talented running quarterbacks. And obviously, that's always the case with the running quarterback. The Josh Allens, the Lamar Jacksons, the Jaden Daniels of the world are difficult to stop. That's why the dual threat is so coveted in the league right now. Two of the basically the two MVP candidates, both do a ton with their legs. But I've got something else on Daniels that I've got another ESPN stat for you that's a little bit more specific here. This is something that I think goes in the Lions' favor because what's the first thing we know about Aaron Glenn? Doesn't matter who he's got out on the field, he's going to bring pressure. He trusts his
yes.
corners, he's going to put them on islands, and whether that's a good idea or not, the pressure lately has gotten home to a great degree. And I have a very important stat for you that is pretty well publicized on Daniels right now is the fact that he struggles mightily under pressure. As a pressured quarterback, he's actually sixth in the league in touchdown rate, but he is seventh in the league in interception rate and sixth in quarterback rate in sack rate while under pressure. Those two things are obviously terrible, and
But
I
he's a
think
lot better.
I think that Aaron Glenn knows that stat and much, much more. I am sure that this is the game plan going in, that you put 5 on the line, you're bringing pressure, extra men every time because it feels like not just stopping Daniels, but hitting him, getting him on the ground, making him feel flustered. He's a rookie quarterback playing on the road in a playoff game. Obviously, he's already done that and won. So maybe who am I to talk here? But Ford Field is a tough place to play when pressure is brought. We've seen the Lions do it to Sam Darnold, where it just froze him up, started seeing ghosts again, started making terrible throws, missing open receivers. You hope that Daniels will sort of fall to a similar fate here.
Absolutely, and I'm also looking at these betting lines, and very similar to what we saw in the last Lions game with, obviously not spread wise, but the total is 55.5. I believe it was 56.5 by game time. If I'm a betting man, I'm hammering that under.
Really? The under?
The playoff football is won by defense.
Mm.
Bids for the right playoff spot are won by defense as well. That's exactly what we saw against the Vikings, and we'll talk about the Vikings' utter collapse from like just the biggest fall from grace in the world when their expectations go from here to here in 2 seconds. But this is playoff football. It's Ford Field. I do think at the same time, as much as I worry about the defense's ability to contain him, I do think if there is any stadium in the NFL right now that could fluster a rookie quarterback, it is Ford fucking Field. And I would be terrified. There's a reason I'm not. There's multiple reasons I'm not playing in the fucking NFL. But I know that if I was, I would have a lot of nerves going into Ford Field as a rookie quarterback facing the number 1 seed. And there's also a chip on your shoulder there too, where I mean, opened at 5.5-point favorites. Now you're underdogs by 8.5. Like nobody thinks you're gonna win. Maybe a few people think you're gonna fucking cover. But nobody thinks this team is gonna win. And I do think this is a good test game to see how this team is adapting from the regular season to the playoffs. I do think that is a big change because we saw the Vikings couldn't handle it. It's also, can we talk for a second how the Vikings managed to lose to 2 teams this year and had 4 losses?
It's a little tough, isn't it? Especially because you got to think about, put yourself in the shoes of Vikings fans right now. That was an awful snap. Snap their finger. That was a terrible snap. Snap their fingers and went from, in the span of about a week and a half, this close. And I mean a quarter of good football. Because you remember it was a 1-point game going into the fourth, or going into the last 2 minutes of the fourth of Sunday Night Football. Last 2 minutes of the third, I should say. They were one good quarter of football from being the number 1 seed in the conference, of having home field advantage the entire way through the NFC.
And a week off.
And then suddenly a week and a half later, at a point when they wouldn't have even played if that quarter of football had gone a different way, they're done.
Yeah.
That is how fast things can change in the playoffs. I know we are all very confident in the Lions. That's no different for us too. But it's a different animal. You're exactly right.
And it's also very interesting because this Rams team, if you would have told me they would be in the divisional round after watching, and again, it was the Bills, but I remember sitting there watching, I want to say it was a Sunday night game, or maybe it was the 425, but it was Bills-Rams, and that was like 80-point game where Josh Allen just torched their defense. And I was like,
that's right.
This defense, I think, just has warm bodies, and that's it.
And
it was one of, like, I never would have guessed that they also would be able to shut down a Vikings offense that seems to have just utterly collapsed. And now you're looking from a Lions fan perspective, if you're looking into next year already, which you shouldn't be, but if you're me, you are. Who's going to be in the pocket for the Vikings? Who is their next threat? Because you have Sam Darnold, who had an incredible year, especially considering expectations. You've also got the guy you spent one of your first-round picks on, in JJ. who was out with the, I think it was the ACL. I knew it was something with his knee.
Meniscus,
But
I
not all
believe.
year, you don't know. Like they could end up trading either. Well, Darnold's a free agent. They're not going to trade him.
Yeah.
They could end up extending Darnold and trading JJ, which I don't think would be the worst move. They could also let Sam go, bring in a backup for JJ. Who knows?
And that's another guy, a week and a half changed the outlook on the Vikings season, right? Week
Yeah.
and a half changed a lot in Sam Darnold's life because he essentially shoveled money into an open flame live on television last week. And that's a little brutal. You feel for the guy. But that is important, performing in those playoff moments. And you also feel bad for the fact that it wasn't entirely his fault. He was sacked a record 9 times. That tied the playoff record. Sacked 9 times? Come on.
Yeah.
That's in you cannot let your quarterback get that hit that much and expect to win a playoff game.
No, you
I'm not
absolutely
saying play well. I'm saying win a game. You can't win a game getting hit 9 times.
no, not at all. And it's a little. Honestly, I mean, I can't stand the Vikings. I want to beat them every time we play them. They're a divisional rival, but you do have to feel for them a little bit.
You do.
I'm very happy to have them out, but I do think, assuming the Lions come out with a win today, I don't want to get overly presumptuous. Who would you rather face in that conference championship game? Because right now, I have no fucking idea.
That's the thing is the obvious choice would be you'd rather play the Rams, right? Like the Eagles would seem to be so much of a better team, but they struggled last weekend. And Jalen Hurts did not look good throwing the football. Now he was coming back from a concussion and all these things, and
But they still, I mean, also, I know we're a Michigan sports talk show. Can we talk about Saquon sliding for a minute?
you didn't like it?
You have an open that's like seeing a 10-point buck and not taking your shot.
He's not used to playoff moments, He's not used to playoff games. He doesn't know how to
Get used to him. You're in it, pal.
Here's the thing. Philadelphia as a city and as a group of sports teams are going to put foot on throat anytime, any chance they get. Saquon's not from there. He doesn't know. You know what I mean? Like, he's new. He's new to being an asshole.
You have to think that in some way, somehow, karma is going to bite them for that play.
Why is that karma? If anything, he's trying to be nice. You know what I mean?
Is football a game of kindness?
No,
Football
but it's
is
the playoffs.
brutal.
He didn't. I'm just saying. It came from a good place. I don't think karma's gonna get him.
I think it very well could. I think if someone could get hurt in this Rams game, and you know me, I'm going to connect it back because I'm a moron.
All right.
I'm going to connect it back there. But the other big thing I did want to talk about is obviously we've talked about all year where you can't exactly pinpoint one true all-star on this Lions offense.
Mm.
But now, especially you have Monty back, and you've got the offense in full strength. It's Ben Johnson's offense. It's going to be how you're going to go. After watching that Commanders game, if there is one guy that you are putting every hot route on, that you're putting the ball in his hands as much as possible whenever he's open or whenever you want to, even if you want to draw a run play, who are you trusting the most with the ball tonight?
I mean, it's Gibbs. It has to be Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think that leads us to a couple of other things. A big storyline going into this game has been Dan Quinn and Dan Campbell, the two Dans, and how much they love to go for it on fourth down, right? The Commanders led the league in fourth down conversion rate. The Lions were up there in fourth down conversion totals. I think they were third. Obviously, MCDC loves to put his balls in the line, go for it on fourth down. That's great. Both of these teams do. Ultimately, what that does is it makes every possession all the more valuable because when you have two teams that can run the ball so effectively, and when you have two teams that extend their drives all the time, we're going to run on third down to make it convertible on fourth. We're going to go convert fourth downs. We're going to have these long extended drives. It shortens the game, right? There's only so many possessions left when two teams play that way. And you got to think about Sonic and Knuckles, right? How much they've been talked about as the best running back duo in the league. The Commanders have a better run game statistically by a decent margin than the Lions do. These are two good running teams that love to go for it on fourth down. There are very few possessions available in this game. What that means is you need your run game to be strong because when every possession is valuable, if you have a 7, a 10-point lead in the third quarter, in the second half, you can start sitting on the football. You take the air out of it, you go get a win by just pounding the ball. And I just knocked my. You pound the football
Yeah.
and you run it with Gibbs and you run it with Monty and you eat clock because that can get you a win. And I think more than Monty because frankly, I'd love him to be healthy. I know he's playing, but I'd love him to be 100%. I have no idea what he'll be at. We need Gibbs to be what he was against Minnesota. I think that's the guy. What about you?
I do think after watching this game, like we talked, Lamar isn't even the rushing leader on his team as a dual quarterback. I think Jaden Daniels, is the only quarterback in the league right now to lead in rushing yards.
Lead his team. I
Or
think that's right.
lead his team. At least if there is one, I don't think of any other possibilities outside of Hurts or Lamar, and neither of them are their rushing leaders. But they also have.
Josh Allen maybe, but I think James Cook is ahead of him.
But that being said, that's where the target is going to be on one guy for this Detroit defense. I think for this Detroit offense, you hit the hammer on the nail. I think if there is anything that you need to do, it is to put the ball in his hands enough to lighten the workload for Monty. I don't see Dan Campbell. It's kind of on putting his balls on the line. It's kind of on that line. I don't see him wanting to rest. I see him going full on balls to the wall and playing Monty as much as humanly possible, or as much as they would consider, like if he was 110% healthy.
Yep.
The guy did tear his ACL.
Was it his MCL?
I'm saying he tore something in his knee.
Yeah.
That is very difficult to come back from. Now, if there's anyone that can do it, it's that bowling ball that we have as RB. I'm going to call him like 0.5 RB1A. But I think as much as you can lighten the workload to prepare him for what could be coming, because the NFC, as we've said, is great. You don't even know if you got to make it to the Super Bowl, and you have no idea what you could be facing there because you have three teams that are like that conference championship game is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Because it's either Ravens or the Bills against the Chiefs. And yes, I'm saying the Texans are going to lose because it's the NFL and everyone is already saying, oh, the Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl and no one can stop them. But this is one of those where if you want to get to that point, I truly don't think you can take the risk of him getting hurt again because I do think you will need that system to balance out one another. I think the reason it works so well is because you have those two guys that are able to kind of give you two different points of attack like we've talked about all year. So I think those will be necessary, which is why I don't want to see him out there that much. I think the moment he starts to look like hobbling or something like that, I might be hitting that damn panic button. Because I think you do need to have that dual threat of running backs. I also think this could be an Amon-Ra game. If this Washington loves to, for whatever reason, I don't know if they don't have the secondary, but if you look at it, this seems to be like your wide receiver 100+ yards game. If you're looking, because Mike Evans put up 96. And I was looking back, and it's always that wide receiver one it's one guy, and he goes off and he has a game. I think this could be Amon-Ra. It could also be Jamos. But I do think Amon-Ra's the playoff guy. I mean, he had the game-winning catch against LA last year in the wild card that everybody remembers. And I think this could be his time. But I do think you're right. I think Jameer is going to be the X factor again today. And it all comes down to, like you said, shortening that game, not giving them a lot of time on offense to make up for something that they might have missed, and making them pay for mistakes. As soon as Daniels throws an interception, don't give it the fuck back. Get some points out of it. Like, it's going to be capitalizing on rookie mistakes and making sure that they don't have a lot of time to do something with the ball.
All right. Overall, then, 8.5-point spread. If you're a betting man, Alex Steinwell, what are you taking?
I think I said it earlier. I don't know if I touched the spread. I'm hammering that under.
Okay.
I think this is a game, not that I think either offense is going to struggle necessarily, but I think playoff football is comes down to defenses, and I think we've seen that so far. I don't think a single over has hit so far in playoffs.
Really?
Maybe Texans Chargers. What was the? Let me look and see. Oh, it's not telling me what the. Oh yes, no, sorry. The over did hit in the Texans Chargers, but I don't think it's hitting anything else. Um, and that's what'll make this interesting. I do think it comes down to defense. So I'm hammering that 55.5 point under.
Hell yeah. Well, I think that's all we've got. If you're looking for the rest of Michigan sports, that'll come tomorrow. For the time being, though, it's playoff time in Detroit, and it's pure Michigan sports.